Hello and welcome to another week of Met HD streaming. I hope you all had a chance to catch some of the gala on Saturday. Lots of fun to see my friends recording and performing from their homes. I'm Carol Anderson, principal coach of the Utah Opera, and I'm happy to talk to you this week about a very fun series of operas. The Met is showing the three Tudor Queen operas of Gaetano Donizetti. I've only actually I've seen two of the three, so I'm not doing so badly. I saw Anna Bolena live and then saw Roberto Devereux in the theater. So it's going to be fun to talk about those. I hope I'll try to repeat information from night to night for people who don't catch every one of my talks, but I can't promise that, if you miss a night, you won't miss something really fun. So just a quick review about Donizetti, as I've talked to him about a couple of shows. I think we did Don Pasquale and I don't remember what the other one was. There have been so many. Donizetti lived 1797, 1848, and he was one of three composers that are typically grouped together as the bel canto composers. The two others are Rossini and Bellini. Bel canto, or beautiful singing, highlights the beauty and the agility and the qualities of the human voice, with the orchestra often taking an accompanimental role in that it doesn't function as importantly in the drama. Obviously, the orchestra is always accompanying an opera. Throughout Donizetti's career, the orchestra becomes more important and more a character in the drama, but that's kind of unusual. That's sort of a part of the transition into the works of Verdi later on in the 19th century. Donizetti was incredibly productive. He wrote more than 60 operas over his 30-year career of writing. I discovered Donizetti actually wrote 4 operas set in the Tudor times. The one we won't be seeing this week is fairly unknown and was the first of his Tudor operas, the 1820 opera Il Castello di Kenilworth, about Elizabeth I, her favored courtier, the Earl of Leicester, and the Earl's bride. So there's always got to be a love triangle in these, right? The three Tudor queens that we're referring to are Anne Boleyn, Mary Stuart, Mary Queen of Scots, and Elizabeth I. The first soprano in modern times to sing all three in one season was the amazing coloratura soprano Beverly Sills, who sang it at New York City Opera in the early 70s. So Donizetti's 1830 opera Anna Bolena is written to a libretto by Felice Romani. I like to translate his name because it's happy. Felice means happy. And this was the opera that really established Donizetti's genius and reputation. Donizetti's teacher, Simon Mayer, is said to have given Donizetti the title Maestro, finally, based on the success of this work. Anna Bolena premiered at... I left my music on the other side of the room. It's weird to see how the sausage is made. Anna Bolena premiered at the Teatro Carcano in Milan, sorry about that, and was a big hit. Its first American performances took place in New Orleans at the Théâtre d'Orléans in 1839. I've mentioned them in some of my other talks. I discovered that they premiered a number of important 19th century works on our shores. Théâtre d'Orléans only performed works in French, so the American premiere was called Anne de Boulogne. After its New York performances in 1850, the opera was not staged again in this country until 1959, where my summer home, the Santa Fe Opera, presented it. The Met is streaming these three operas in historical chronological order, which also happens to be their composition order. We all know how this particular story ends. Anne Boleyn, Anna Bolena, was beheaded in 1836, and Jane Seymour becomes the third wife of Henry VIII. She only lasted a year in that position, so all of the pain she goes through in Anna Bolena was really not worth, I don't think, maybe it was worth the year, I don't know. I had this great opportunity to see this production live with not with the Anna Netrebko, it was with Angela Mead, which was kind of like the later cast. Fun story, I was going to New York for a wedding already and was staying with a mezzo friend who was covering the role of Jane Seymour. The night before I flew to New York on a red eye, she got the call that she was going to sing the Friday night performance. So I arrived just in time to take on the role of diva tender. I took a nap after the red eye, and then I took on the role of diva tender and helped Kathy have the time to focus on preparation for the role, and I got to see the role in-house. So that was a lot of fun. I just wanted to share that because it's one of those stories, understudies, they work hard and they don't have the accolades. We have a word in the industry we call cover butt, but that means you're just, they've done the work on the piece, they're ready to sing it, but they have to spend a lot of time just sitting, watching and learning. But when the opportunity comes, they better be ready. So it's a different sort of role. I'm not saying all the roles in opera aren't difficult, and of course performing is a challenge, but covering has its own quirks. So at the beginning of the opera, a chorus sings a sad, sad song that the Queen Anna Bolena has fallen out of favor with King Henry VIII, or as we call him in this opera, Enrico. His attentions have wandered to Giovanna Seymour, which is the Italian version of Jane Seymour. Now, bel canto operas often, invariably have two-part arias for the characters, and the character often sings a two-part aria as their entrance aria or the first big aria that they sing. When I say a two-part aria, and I've said this, it might be a review for some of you, we have a slower section called the cavatina, which tends to be a little bit more legato and wistful, calmer in tempo, not always, but often. Then there is a middle section, which is a transitional section where we call it the tempo di mezzo, which means the time in the middle. In the tempo di mezzo, someone will appear, or hunting horns will sound, or a chorus will be heard. Something happens to change the course of the scene and change the thoughts of the person singing the aria. So then we have a cabaletta, which tends to be a slightly faster tempo, sometimes very fast. And the vocal writing of the cabaletta tends to be more spectacular, more virtuosic in the sense of agility and coloratura runs, where the virtuosic quality of the first half is just the beautiful legato and the expertly done rubato. And there is a lot of rubato, which means it's from the word rubare in Italian, which means to rob, and it means we're stealing time and then giving it back. So there's a tempo push and pull. It's not a click track, so to speak. So Anna's first two-part aria, she enters and she is rather sad, and she's just heard her page Smeton sing a beautiful aria, and it's kind of touched her heart. So she's commenting on how this young boy has his words have reached her heart. So we have this aria: come innocente giovane, come m'hai scosso il cuore, how it's touched my heart. So that's the idea of the cavatina. And there were some runs, but they were done very sweetly and melodically. They weren't just sparkly in the way that the second half will be. So then we have military music that becomes our tempo di mezzo, and she says very little remains of the night, and so she's changing her mood. And then Jane Seymour is in the room with her and says, it's almost time, dawn is almost come, and it's time for us to sort of wait for the king. And then she says, andiam Seymour, come along Seymour. And Jane says, what is causing you to be agitated? And then she says, let me tell you about it. So we have this kind of music. So we've just had this. Then we have. Dopo che ormai rimangono ore di notte, io credo l'alba è vicina a sorgere. Signore, io vi congedo. Vagita And we're in the cabaletta. There's our orchestral introduction. It's as difficult to sing as it is to sometimes play accurately on the piano when you are new to the opera. But you hear how the tempo would slow down a little bit for some gestures and then move back in that cabaletta, and that's very common. So the next scene, Henry and all the court come. They've been out hunting, so we have hunting horn music. Anticipation, because there's what's called a pedal tone in the bass, and it's a note of expectation. It's the same note for quite a long time, while the harmony changes a little bit around it, and it's the fifth scale degree of C major, which makes it the fifth scale degree usually underlies a chord of transition and of heightened tension, which then resolves to the C major chord. So that makes us feel anticipatory and a little bit unsettled. This is a really fun scene in the Met production because everyone appears, and there are these two amazing Irish wolfhounds that are giant that come in with the king's hunting party. So they're the stars of the show, really. Don't tell Anna Bolena that I said that. Don't tell Anna Netrebko. No. So in this scene, Anna and her former lover, Percy, have not seen each other for a long time, and Enrico has arranged that they have an encounter. So then when the courtiers come, it sort of splits them apart from their time, and then everyone's a little bit shocked at what's happened. Percy is confused because he still has feelings for Anna. Anna's trying to play the court game properly. And we have this wonderful build up to a ensemble, and I love this ensemble because it makes me think of, it has the DNA of Lucia di Lammermoor Sextet, which is one of my favorite ensembles in it. And that took place, Lucia is probably about, I think it's 1835, so we're looking at about 5 years before Lucia. So lots of drama chords, and then we have everything stops. So let's listen to that build up. Percy is saying, "Oh, my queen, oh God, arise." Then Rochefort, who is a bad guy, si perde, they're lost. Then Anna says again, "Oh Dio." Hervé from The King. "My lord." And then Anna says, "I feel the hot tears of Percy falling on my hand." modulate keys, and Enrico sings. And every time someone sings, then they continue on while the next person gets the melody, and they have little comments. So it's a really great moment of building into this amazing thing. And then the chorus eventually joins. All of these things happen. It's very standard procedure in a big bel canto ensemble, but it's used to great effect here. And then, of course, amazingly in Lucia later on. So Anna eventually is imprisoned to open and convicted and condemned to death to open the door for Giovanna Seymour, Jane Seymour, to walk in and take over as queen. But before her final decease, I'm making up words today. Before her final execution, we have a confrontation between Anna and Giovanna, and it's very sad because they were actually good friends, and then the man has come between them. And Giovanna, Jane Seymour, is presented in this opera as a bit of an innocent victim, just kind of, a victim to the machinations of the king. And so the confrontation begins very angrily, and Anna is saying, will the punishment of God fall upon you? And it's quite a long scene, with a lot of layers of emotion through it. So it's really exciting. So at the end, as we build to the end, and typically big ensembles like this, they also follow that kind of two-part structure, although quite extended in this case. The thing is, we have this two-part structure, which is a basic form in bel canto for arias, but what's amazing is how it can be expanded. And so forms are important for composers to understand, but what's brilliant is how they depart from the standard things. So to have all this extra material in this confrontation duet and all of that is an interesting way to vary and put their stamp of individuality on the bel canto formula, if that makes sense. That was a bit of a run-on. So by the time we get to the end of this aria and this duet, and we move into the big finale between the two women, their minds have both changed. Anna has said, "Go, unhappy woman," and I finally am able to forgive you, and I think that living with my forgiveness will be actually worse for you than if I were still angry. And then Jane, and that's in minor key and very heavy and mournful. And then later on, Jane goes into something a little bit more agitated, and it's in a major key, and she says it will be worse to live with and I will always feel unworthy throughout because of what has happened. So we have these big chords. We're moving into minor. Anna says, "Fine felice e te correggo il perdono di Bolena nel mio tuo furente cieca t'impregai terribil pena la tua grazia or chiedo a Dio e concessa a me sarà la tua grazia implora Dio e concessa a me sarà." And then she goes on a bit, and then when her section finishes, this is when Jane Seymour comes. It goes, "Mia lauda pietà a peggiore il tuo perdono dello segno Dio." Transitional music. She's holding a little high G. And then we move into the final push to the end. Just so you know, that sounds like one melody, but it's the two ladies trading. Anna says, La tua grazia chiedo, and then Giovanna says, Ah, per me perdo, e concessa mesa, no per, and then they trade the coloratura as well. And then it, of course, ends with the two of them, Anna going back to her ponderings of her confinement, and Giovanna running off in a tizzy, full of grief. So the show ends with Anne Boleyn's beheading off stage, but before that happens, we have this very extended mad scene where Anna Bolena is in her room by herself and contemplating what's going on, and then of course the ladies come in and are helping with her, and her trying to offer support. She, as a queen, she keeps her ladies in waiting throughout. She doesn't have to be put into a hideous prison. She's treated with respect up until the moment she goes to the scaffold. So this mad scene is just, it's a long, there's a lot of recitative where it's just accompanied recitative where you have orchestral interjections, and then you have melodic lines that are more speech-like, often unaccompanied. So for instance, we begin with this very slow music. She says, Piangete voi. Donde ta pianto? She asks her ladies, she's actually not alone. She asks her ladies, why are you crying? Changes mood a little bit. Today is the wedding day. The king is waiting for me. She thinks it's her wedding day, and the altar is full of flowers, and she'll have a big crazy melisma, lots of notes on the flowered altar. E questo giorno di nozze il re m'aspetto è acceso, infiorato is flowery. So lots of change, and the orchestra will reflect her mental state, or it will sometimes be a transition to her new mental state. A lot of these mad scenes have these sharp changes of mood to show the moving and then the shifting patterns of less than rational thought. So then she has this gorgeous, gorgeous aria section, Al dolce guidami castelnatio, and just talking about the beautiful trees and the river. It's all near her home, her birth home, her castelnatio, which is the castle of her birth. Cavatina idea of of a very long two-part aria. It's very expanded from the main structure. And as she gets further into this, she gets a little bit more flighty with the choral. The flights of coloratura happen. Try that again so you can get... decorated. Then we have a cadenza where the orchestra drops out. And then sometimes they'll make up a different cadenza to fill in that. So I don't know what cadenza Anna Netrebko will do tonight. And then it usually goes into a standard cadential material. And the ladies come in. So then, fast forward quite a bit through this scene. We're about 12 pages ahead now in the score. She talks about how to the coppia iniqua, which is the sinful couple, referring to Henry and Jane. She says the wrath of heaven's going to fall upon you. And it has a totally different idea. And as Ed said, she's become quite a bit more agitated as she's getting closer to her death. So there's a lot of trills, a lot of high notes. We have, even in the very first phrase, she has all these arpeggios that span about an octave and a half almost. So it's really showing the range of the voice. It's very difficult, and also showing the range of an actor's emotion. Then we go down here. Trills. Trill, trill. Where the chorus helps give her a chance to recoup her vocal forces while still staying dramatic. So, and then we have a second iteration of that. Sometimes I suspect that Matt has left it in. I don't recall. This was 2011, I think, when I saw it. But sometimes the repetitions will be of these two-part arias. They're really four-part arias if you think about it, because it's two parts of the slow, then the tempo di mezzo, then two parts of the fast. If they're repeated with ornamentation, so that it's a throwback to the days of Handel. This is a very long one of my lectures, so I hope you don't mind it, and I hope you've been patient and stood with me, because now we've gotten to the final scene, and there's nothing left for her to be taken off dramatically to lose her head. Not the first of this trilogy to lose their head. Each of these operas have beheading in them. So, thank you for joining me. Come tomorrow night, and we will talk about the next queen of the three. And thanks again for joining me on these little journeys through these operas. I really love Anna Bolena. That probably explains why I talked more about it. I just think it has some of the most beautiful vocal writing of any opera, and it's so rarely done relative to something like Lucia. So I hope you enjoy discovering it if it's a new opera to you. Stay safe, wash your hands. We appreciate your support of the operas and from all over, and we appreciate your support of your local opera and arts organizations. And we're thankful in particular to our good friends Judy Brady and Drew W. Browning, who have been longtime friends and supporters of the Utah Opera and are making these introductions possible. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time.